let's kick off the show the way I've been kicking it off the last few episodes, and that's anytime I have a new guest on that I haven't done this with yet. We're gonna go through your game of the year for the last 10 years, so the last decade. They're
Hmm.
your personal picks. I mean, I can threaten to block you like I threaten everybody else if they don't pick what I like. But at the end of the day, it's not controlled by me. It's not done by vote. So let's
Yeah.
go through them. I will just share for those who do like repeat listeners, which I really literally think it's just Gaston. So he knows probably my list by heart because he's like, Derek, you tell me every video.
Hey, there's more than that. We got more views than that. I tell you. Yeah, there's more.
But I am going to I'm just going to share mine, but I will not elaborate because I want to get through this quicker because
Yeah.
we have a ton of games to talk, and that's what I'm excited about
Yeah.
too. So let's kick it off. Let's start with your game of the year for 2014. What was your favorite game?
Gosh, 2014 was kind of a weird year for games for me because I didn't game as much. But I'm gonna go with it was the Shadows of War. Was that year? Or was it
Was it
Mordor?
Shadows of Mordor?
I think it was Mordor. It was the first one. Um,
I think it's Shadows of Mordor.
so I'm gonna pick that one. It was just a really cool combination of lore that I love with Lord of the Rings and then the Assassin's Creed gameplay. To be fair, War was overall improved in pretty much every way, but Mordor was
Hmm.
such a I don't know, it was such a novel idea. We hadn't seen anything like that in
I was
that
gonna say,
universe.
yeah.
So,
Well, not even
yeah.
just in that universe. Some of the systems they created, I don't think were in
Nemesis.
games.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think they were in games before. So it was a unique release.
Yeah.
This is normally what I should threaten you, but the joke with you has been played
Hmm.
out. I've bought you Dragon Age Inquisition 75 gazillion times. You
Yeah.
continue to ignore it,
Uh-huh.
but that is obviously my pick for my personal game of the year.
Sure.
And I'm sure it will be my pick in 2024 with the new one. We'll see. But
Hmm.
uh yeah, so that's my pick. But yours, I do like. I love that game. I
Yeah.
love both of them, and I'm kind of sad. I don't know if we're ever gonna get one
I
back.
don't I
I
don't
don't think
either.
so.
I don't think so.
I don't
I
think the
want more
second
games
one
with
did as well.
Nemesis. I want the Nemesis system back though.
I
You know, I
liked
think
it.
they have it patented, so I just want it to be used somewhere else.
It's an addicting loop. I liked it.
Hmm.
I loved it. All right, so let's move to 2015, which I'm 99% sure I know which one you're picking here, but still want to hear it from your mouth, and the listeners do as well. What's your game of the year?
Rocket League? No, not Rocket League. I do love
I
Rocket
mean,
League, but it's definitely The Witcher 3. Although Rocket League was up there that year. Witcher 3 without a doubt. And it doesn't hurt that the two expansions were absolutely stellar, especially the Blood and Wine was a
mhm.
massive, almost like Witcher 3.5. Like it felt like almost a sequel. It was that big. So,
Yeah, and it was like different but still the same.
yeah.
So you
Hmm.
felt like you were playing an actual expansion of the game. It was
Yep.
really well done.
And you know what's cool too is I revisited it recently on Steam with my new PC, and it's not the most powerful PC, but it's up there, right? It's probably on the either high end of mid range or low end of high range. It's up
It's
there.
high end. It's high end. I
It
think
plays things so
it's a
well.
4070 Ti, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You're high end.
yeah. So
Anything up Ti 70 Ti is high end.
it crushes these games, and so Witcher 3, I think, with all the upgrades they've done over the years, where they've upkept it and way it looks on PC, I'm like, this still looks like a modern day and plays like a modern day game. Like it doesn't feel like it's almost 10 years old to me. But
That was actually not to like pause our discussion too long, but like give me a little bit of because I haven't talked to you since I talked to you when you were building the PC, but I haven't
hmm
had like any conversations with you how you feel about it, like as far as gaming on it. Like, what's
yeah.
your average frames per second? Are you playing in 4K? Are you only doing 1440p? Are you upgrading your monitor? What's your feelings on your PC?
Yeah, my monitor upgrade, I'm shooting for Christmas time, might be after that. You know, we'll see what kind of sales. So right now I'm still on the 1440p, the
Okay,
2K essentially monitor, but I mean everything at least 120 frames per second without
at
any
1440p.
problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, without
Are
any
you using
problems.
DLSS?
Yeah, yeah, and so
Yeah.
I'm just maxing out the quality as getting it like Black Myth Wukong looks unbelievable on this. Like it looks so good. I played it briefly on my last PC and it looked pretty good. I was like, hey, this is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I think I ran it at 45, 60 frames per second. It's just so much better. It looks so pretty. And I played Red Dead Redemption, a little Witcher 3. I fired up some of the big games just to kind
Mm-hmm.
of see what it could do, and This thing cooks, man. I got to give my son, my 17-year-old, a ton of credit. He did the research, the helped me pick out the parts. He went with me to the store, and then he did probably 75% of the actual build with me. And down in his room, we put it together. And he was very motivated because he was getting my old PC, which is still a decent little mid-range rig. He was getting that as a payment for this. So
It's not a bad deal.
yeah,
How's he liking that one?
he loves it. Yeah, he loves
What's
it. He's
he?
doing.
What monitor is he using for that?
Yeah, so he bought also a 1440p monitor. I forget
Okay.
what brand. I don't think it's Samsung. I forget what brand it is. So he has a two monitor setup. He has a 1080 monitor and then his 1440p for
Okay.
his main gaming. So
Oh, he's turning
yeah,
into a Derek Jr.
that's right. That's
I
right.
literally like my friend because I'm moving soon was like, how many TVs monitors you have? And I had to count and I was like, oh my God, I have nine. I have
That's
nine
so many.
TVs and monitors. I have nine people. They're all mine too. It's not like, oh,
There's
I have
9 people in my
nine.
house and we don't have 9.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, I have nine and it's because my daughter has one, my two sons
Uh,
have one apiece. No, they have their own stuff.
you
I
have
have
9.
nine.
You
Yes.
have 9.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
cannot wait to set it all up. But anyways,
Yeah.
this isn't about me.
It was a
That's
fun
cool.
build, by the way. It was a really fun build. I would highly recommend it. Building these days is so accessible to novices like me and my son. We just learned on YouTube and watching guides and the parts are made for people to just put together. It's a matter of how much do you want to spend. And if you go to a place like Micro Center, the guys who worked there were so awesome. They knew
Hmm.
everything. They were super into every individual piece and what case to get and cooling systems, and it was
They
great,
just
man.
opened one in Miami. I'm not gonna
Okay,
go there because that's like 4 hours from
it's a long
here,
drive.
but
Yeah,
it's pretty cool that they're starting to open up more stores. But
yeah, I love that.
anyways, I sidetracked us and I
That's
said I
okay.
was gonna get through this semi
We'll
fast.
go
But
faster.
yes, The Witcher 3, good pick. Mine actually changed. It was The Witcher 3. It's still technically, I went ahead and chose two. Bloodborne and The Witcher 3 are
Again,
my two
yeah.
picks. I refuse to pick one because it's ridiculous.
If I
Uh,
re-ranked to be clear, Bloodborne and Rocket League would actually be together in that top three. No, not no,
yeah.
that's sorry, not yeah. Bloodborne would be up there with Rocket League, right behind Witcher 3.
As much as I love Rocket League and I literally played it for 7 or 8 years straight of my
Yeah,
life, I can't pick it. I think we've had this conversation before. I don't have any emotional attachment to it. It's just like a fun game that I played nonstop, and I'm like, game of the
that's fair.
year? No, I won't pick
Yeah,
that.
that's
No.
totally fair.
Let's do 2016. What's your pick? I
Mm.
do remember this one being controversial because you had Dan and I. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
was on the show, I was a host, but we had Dan
Mm-hmm.
on, and it was like our 2016 Game of the Year ranking, and we ended up with Dark Souls 3. I remember
You did.
being, I think, the top game. I think it was our Game of the Year. So, what
It
is
was the game
yours?
of the
Because
year.
you were not okay with that.
I got over it. Just as the years that followed, I thought there were actually more undeserving winners than that one in the years that followed. Um, so that one wasn't undeserving. I just didn't love Dark Souls or hadn't even played Bloodborne. I didn't appreciate FromSoft yet, so I just didn't. Now I have
Yeah.
more of an appreciation for him. But for me, it was and still is Uncharted 4, without a doubt. And there wasn't really for me anything else really close that year. Lots of good games, but nothing that was truly great like that one was for me. I thought it was a very cinematic storytelling, beautiful game. Love it.
Yeah, my liking of that game has increased over the years. I know that year I struggled with it, but I went back and played it a second time and even started a third playthrough on my PC, which highly recommend you buy the collection. And then when
Hmm.
you get your 4K monitor, boot that bad boy up,
Yeah.
max it out, and trust me, you'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe what I'm looking at."
Yeah.
Mine, Dark Souls 3, that's not changing. I love the Souls games, so it's not moving for me.
Not a surprise. Yeah.
2017, though, on the other hand, is one
Hmm.
of the best games in gaming for me personally. So this is a tough
Hmm.
one. So I'm curious to see. I know we picked, I think, together Zelda Breath of the Wild as our game of the year on the
Hmm.
show. What is your personal pick, though?
Yeah, it's still Breath of the Wild, and it was a tough year because you had so many
Hmm.
absolutely stellar games: Assassin's Creed Origins, Mario Odyssey, Horizon Zero Dawn. That was Shadow of War year. Now that I'm looking at the list, Mass Effect Andromeda, Wolfenstein 2,
Yeah.
like Near Automata, like it was a crazy good year for gaming. And there's still others I could mention. Breath of the Wild was just absolutely kind of not even just game changing, but kind of like when I think of the way I view video games, it shifted it. It just kind of changed the way I
Hmm.
viewed video games. And that didn't happen again for another 5 years. And I'll tell you what that one is when we get to 2022. But yeah, that one shifted the way I looked at what games could be, what they could do.
Hmm.
And it's unbelievable. I love it.
Mine's gonna be Breath of the Wild as well. I did put again on this. I was breaking rules and just adding games that I feel like they're totally different, but I have the same love for them.
Hmm.
And I put Horizon Zero Dawn in there.
Yep.
But don't discount Andromeda. I talked about it while Kyle was
So
on.
good.
That is one that I freaking love too. That it's hard for me to leave that off as my favorite game. But I put Zelda
That
Breath
game
of the
got a
Wild and
bad
Zero
rap.
Dawn.
Andromeda
Yeah,
got a bad rap, man.
way too
Unfair.
harsh. Way too
Hmm.
harsh. I think. Don't get me wrong. There was issues, but I think
Of
that was
course.
more of an expectation issue, like
Yep.
hype level, and them being like, "What the heck? Crazy eyes!" and this is this, and people just hating on it. It was
I
fun to
view
hate on.
Starfield a lot the same way as I view Andromeda personally. But anyway,
No, I get that. Makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
All right, let's move to 2018.
Even
What's
tougher
your
than
pick?
2017. Even tougher because my top three have each taken the top spot at different times as I've gone back
So
to
give me your
re-rank this
top
year.
three, but then tell me what you settled on for this list.
Alphabetically, my top three is Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is my
Okay.
favorite Assassin's Creed game, God of War, the reboot from 2018, and Red Dead Redemption 2.
Ooh,
And
I think
that
I know which
year,
one.
when we ranked them that year, I picked God of War by a hair. As I've replayed all of them, I've revisited all of them to various degrees.
Mm-hmm.
The one that has stuck with me and is now my number one, and it's not. It kind of has pulled away. I don't think it's super close anymore. Is Red Dead Redemption 2. I think it's just one of my favorite games of all time. So, and that's after revisiting it on this PC as well. That helped. But man, that's such a good game. And I know it's
That
not for
game's.
everyone. I know the pacing. I understand the qualms with
Mm-hmm.
it. But for me, it's just near perfect gameplay. I
This
love it.
is your list, so
Yeah.
who cares what other
I could be
people
wrong.
say
That's
about?
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, could be wrong. I actually go with God of War. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a game I struggled to play through because of my personal life.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh,
once I
that's right.
revisited it and then I replayed it again, I actually played it. Was it third time? Yes, third
On
time
PC.
on PC. But I played it at 8K. That was my first 8K
Holy
game.
crap.
So I was like, this game, holy crap. So that is actually my choice. I don't
Yeah.
remember what I picked back in 2018 because
I know
2018 was crazy.
that won our group or as
Yeah,
we did our podcast to rank them,
but
that's
I
what
have no
won.
idea if that was mine. I probably
Yeah.
picked something dumb. Let's go 2019. What is
Yeah.
your personal game of the year for that year?
Yeah, not as many like no-brainers this year for me. So a lot of really good games, but none that really were
Hmm.
like the previous year. There were three that could have been number one.
Hmm.
So this one, I I landed on Star Wars Jedi: The Fallen Order as my favorite,
Okay.
and that's even after revisiting it a bit. Really close second and third place were Plague Tale: Innocence and Control. I loved both those games too.
Okay. Control, I really, really
Mm.
love, but I do remember now that I remember you guys fighting for that one on the podcast and me being the one that's like, no, it's okay. Then I revisited it, played it, beat it a second time. I was like, I was wrong. That game is
Mm.
amazing.
Hmm.
But my pick is actually Sekiro.
Sekiro,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was that is still one of my favorite games from that year.
You know what?
But
I've
then
revisited that game this year on PC. I still haven't finished it because I got distracted. Other new games came out, but I still have it installed. I plan on finishing it.
how far did you
Um,
get?
I am past that whole snow canyon place where they're shooting at you. Like
Yeah, I
probably
hated that
probably
place.
2/3 of the way through the game based on the mission and boss count. But all that to say, I have not re-ranked 2019 since that year. If I did, I bet you that one would be at least number four, if not maybe bump down Control or Plague Tale. I could see
Yeah.
it being up there for me. I love it's a really good game. It's really good.
It is. It's really good. Still,
So
to me, in my opinion,
I understand now more why it won at the Game Awards. Then I was like, what the heck? Like, why did this win? But yeah, I get it. I get why. It's really good.
it's really good.
Hmm.
2020. Now, to me, this is an amazing year as
Yeah.
well. So I have multi picks for that one as well. But what is your personal game of the year for that year?
Yeah, this one was a tough one. It also has changed here and there. I know our group selection landed on Ghost of Tsushima, and it was close.
That's a
Uh,
no.
but I have circled back to Last of Us Part 2. Similar to Red Dead Redemption 2, like as I've kind of processed the experience of those games and appreciated what went into them, Last of Us Part 2 is just so good. And they took so many risks that I know people hate them for. I get it, but I've appreciated it more and more over time as I've thought back on that game, revisited that game. So Last of Us Part 2, it's too good. And don't get me wrong, Ghost of Tsushima had no business being as good as it was. It still to me is a strong number two. But
Yeah,
yeah, Last of Us Part 2
strong,
is number one.
strong number two. Um,
Hey.
I went with The Last of Us Part Two as well. That is my clear cut number one. I did have some shifts though. Actually, the two games that I put next to it, I would say are honorable mentions, were games that I remember struggling with liking it as much as, especially you guys with Final Fantasy Remake.
Mm.
I ended up generally liking it, but I didn't fall
Hmm.
in love with it until I don't know if people get the theme. I replayed it, and then it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this game's really good.
That happened with me
Um,
with a game I think you're about to mention. I went back and replayed it and I love it. But I have a feeling you're going to say it.
no, I think you're not because I don't think you've played this one. Demon Souls remake.
Nope, that's not the one. I thought you were going to say Cyberpunk 2077.
No, I love that game, but it's I would rate these three games higher
Got it.
on my
Got
love
it.
list.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, Although I bet you if I went and like replayed the entire campaign, which I haven't done, I'd probably change my
Like it's funny
my
looking at my list now. I've got Ori Will the Wisps up really high, but if I re-ranked it, I'd put Hades above it. I'd put Cyberpunk above it. Like
yeah.
stuff that it was above would totally bump it
Yep.
down. It's funny the
It
way that our views change on these things over
That's
time.
why I like doing this is because it's just like you pick it, you have your reasons you pick it that year, but then as
Yeah.
you play more games or maybe even replay that game, you go, oh, it's good,
Yeah.
but it's not as great, blah blah blah.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, so Demon Souls is actually one of those for me too, because it isn't like, oh, you're a Souls boy, so of course you picked it. No, I actually dislike that game at the highest level of dislike. I just beat it. I beat it on the PS3 before the PS5 launched, knowing remake was coming out, so excited for it. And then after I beat it on the PS3, started it on PS5, I was like, I don't want to play this game again. I hate the game. Like I hate the systems. And then I went back and played it like I want to say it was 3 or 4 months ago,
Uh-huh.
maybe a little less, and my experience was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it, became obsessed with it,
That's
and
awesome.
I learned all the systems that I hated. Now I like them. So yeah, definitely a great game.
Yeah.
2021.
Yep.
This is
This
another
one,
good year too.
it was. It reminds me of 2019 because there's lots of really good, sometimes great games. None that for me personally were the obvious standouts. I guess that's not true. For me personally, there is one, and that's Valheim. But I would never objectively say that should be anyone else's number one. It just hooked
Hmm.
me, and I got totally addicted to it, and I've gone back to it multiple times over the
I was
years.
gonna say you still talk about it to this day.
It's just one of those games that just did it. It just like clicked for me. So that's number one. But I gotta tell you, the more I have gone back and replayed and revisited and thought back on Forza Horizon 5, I think I'd move that one up probably to number two. It's just the perfect kind of open world racing experience. It's beautiful. It's so fun to play. It's a good combo of sim and arcade. I really, really like it. And then Guardians of the Galaxy was up there as well. I love that game too. That one's
Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah.
good games.
Hmm.
I was actually gonna make the joke 2021 was the last year Microsoft was relevant, because of Forza Horizon 5, and then
Mm.
my game of the year, Halo Infinite, which I really,
That's your
really
game of
like.
the year. I didn't know that.
It's my favorite game. I love it. I don't know if you saw, and I'm not going to pick it up and show anybody because it's plugged in and it's pointless. But I'm not a big Series X guy. I've had one since launch, but I only use
Hmm.
it for like streaming.
Yeah.
But I was actually shopping to help Jesse buy one, and I told him, oh, they're lower price than what they were to buy one for his daughter. And when I went to go show, like, make sure I was right about the price, GameStop had the Halo Infinite Xbox Series X edition pre-owned for 450, and I immediately bought it. And
There
so
you
I
go.
joked with Jesse. I was like, here I am trying to help your cheap ass buy something," which of course he didn't buy, and I'm the one that pulls the trigger in like 10 seconds. But real excited I got that one because if I was to sell it online, I could easily get 800 to a grand for it. People
Mm.
love that console. But yeah, Halo Infinite was my favorite game. I would say honorable mention though, and again, another one I didn't like at launch. but I ended up loving Deathloop. Outstanding
Deathloop.
game.
Yeah.
Highly recommended if people have slept on it. It's a really, really good game. It's got a nice loop. It's literally a loop, so it's really
Yep.
good. And then 2022, probably well, no, it's my second hardest year because 2023 is harder.
Yeah.
2022 has some amazing games,
Sure
so
does.
pretty sure I know which one you're gonna pick, but I want to hear it from you. What is
Um,
your game of the
this is
year?
gonna sound like I'm being mean to God of War Ragnarok, and I'm not, because I think it was even better than the first one, and I love it. And you
Ugh.
just heard that was my favorite. That was up there for 2018 as well. But it's Elden Ring. Elden Ring was a kind of paradigm shifting experience for me, like Breath of the Wild. It was a
Hmm.
perfect combination of FromSoft and Zelda and all the things I love about that. Difficulty, but not too difficult, and beautiful exploration, unbelievable world to explore, so many builds and weapons
So many
and armor
secrets.
and so many secrets to like every corner I explored, I felt like I got rewarded somehow. Um,
Hmm.
there was even on my second playthrough on New Game Plus because I beat it twice and then did the DLC and finished that this summer. And I know there's still things out there that I haven't seen, even though I've spent probably 400 hours in that game, 500 hours in that game total. So yeah, it's Elden Ring. God of War Ragnarok's pretty close behind it. And then there's a whole group of games that I really love, but they just didn't quite make the cut of those two. And that's like that second Plague Tale was great. Horizon Forbidden West was really great. But yeah,
Hmm.
those two were the cream of the crop.
I'm gonna agree with you. Elden Ring's mine. It's I mean, it's like a Breath of the Wild experience, just
Hmm.
more difficult. It's a mature version of Breath of the Wild. It
Hmm.
just gives you this open world, doesn't point you in any, well, you can point yourself in a direction, but it literally doesn't control you. It doesn't
Yep.
say you can't go here. It just lets you go wherever you want to go and do whatever you want to do. And there's so many secrets, and in a world that we live in now, it's hard to keep secrets in games. Like I always
True.
use the example of like one of the reasons I love the Mortal Kombat games is that in every single game there was a ton of secrets that nobody knew, and there was so many rumors that are like this is in the game, and you would find out 10 years later it wasn't in the game. If you do
Hmm.
this and play 12,000 matches, you get to play tabletop tennis. That's one of the things I tried to do at some point with Mortal Kombat. Now there is none of that in Mortal Kombat. As soon as the game launches, they have videos with every single fatality, every secret ending, every secret character, everything is exposed.
It's
You
true.
cannot do that with Elden Ring. You can try. They have 100% walkthroughs that even Fighting Cowboy, who I watch, he's like, I'm going to do 100% walkthrough, but just understand, I cannot get 100% of this game because I still don't know where everything, you just can't.
Hmm.
Um, so they do the best they can, but there's just so much to those games and to that world. And then
Yep.
my honorable mentions, of course, God of War Ragnarok is definitely one of them,
So good.
but it's actually the second one I put in was Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Mm.
It's my favorite JRPG. I actually played the expansion too. That was just as good. It's an amazing game. If you love JRPGs, again, do not sleep on this one. Even though it's on the Switch, it's still an amazing game. Absolutely amazing game.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, final year, and for me personally, toughest year to pick one.
Hmm.
Um, but what was your 2023 game of the year? Personal pick.
Yeah, it was Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And I know that might feel like too easy of a pick. Well, you love Breath of the Wild, isn't that more of it? I mean, it is, but it's so different
But
once you
it's not
really
to me.
start playing it. Like the verticality is crazy. I can't believe that game works on the Switch and works so well. I just can't, it's just really pretty and it's so fun. I understand those who prefer Breath of the Wild. I do. They're different. That's because they're different games. Like they are different experiences, even though there are similarities. But I loved Tears of the Kingdom. When I finally sat down and just focused on that game alone, I was so hooked all the way through to the credits rolled. So I love it. There's other ones that I really love too. Very cinematic year of games between Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Spider-Man 2, Hogwarts
Hmm.
Legacy, Alan Wake 2, Starfield. These were like big AAA budget
Hmm.
cinematic titles that I had a good time with all of those games. Final Fantasy 16, I enjoyed all those games. But that one, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom stood out to me, and I have a feeling the one you're going to pick is one of those that's like on my backlog Hall of Shame. I only spent like 5 hours with it and never really truly revisited it.
Of course, I'm gonna pick Baldur's Gate 3. It's the
Hmm.
greatest game ever. I I will love to do a second playthrough of it just because I know I will probably be even in more awe just because I'll be like, nothing turned out exactly how it turned out the first
Yeah.
time around. Like it's
Yeah.
that different. But that's definitely my first pick. But I have like tiers, honorable mentions
Hmm.
because they're so different, and yet I loved both of these games so much, and that's Tears of the Kingdom and Final Fantasy 16. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I even shared with you as I played those games. I think Tears came out first. This is like the best game I've ever played. Then Final Fantasy 16 came out. I was like, no, this is the best game I ever played. And then Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and I was like, no, this is the best game I ever played. And then I went back and beat Tears of the Kingdom because I only got
Mm,
like 60 or 70 hours in. And I went back and played like the last 20 or 30 hours, beat it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's not going to surpass Baldur's Gate 3 because I have my reasons why I love that. But those three games are completely different
mm,
but gave me the same feeling of like in awe of what they do and what they're doing, they do it the best in my opinion.
yeah.
So those three games are the reason I say personally 2023 is my favorite year of gaming of all time. And I've been
Yeah.
gaming for like 35, 37 years, probably somewhere around there.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
so yeah, that's my favorite year of gaming.
A good one. It's a really good one. Yeah, as far as like for this year, if we were allowed to use DLCs, it would be the Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree. It's just so good. It'd be my game of the year right now. But otherwise, there's lots of good ones that are cooking that I don't know yet. But Astrobot, the new Prince of Persia, I loved. Banishers, I think, is a criminally underrated, overlooked
It's
game.
good.
Um, the new Zelda game, I'm really enjoying. I loved Rebirth. I thought Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was excellent. I've played a lot of Dragon's Dogma 2 this past month. That's a lot of fun. So yeah, there's a lot of
Did
like
you get that
really
on
good ones.
PC or are you playing
Hmm.
that on PS5?
PC. Hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, then let's move it to the next part of the show, which is, well, that's why we have you here. Yeah, the Game of the Years was part of it, but it's really what are you playing?
Mm.
What's like your main game right now, and then obviously we can veer off to any other games. And also if you've beaten any games recently, maybe hit on those first and then move into whatever your main game is. So, have you
Hmm.
finished anything recently?
Yeah, there's two I finished in the last few weeks. One was Astrobot.
Okay.
Finished that one and I love it. There's really nothing much to criticize about it for what it's trying to do. It is a wonderful Mario-like platformer. It's the closest that anyone that's not Nintendo has come to make a Mario game, and I think it is that good, that beautiful, such a fun game. Two of my kids have now finished it too because they can't stop playing it. And keep in
That's
mind, they
awesome.
they don't even have the PlayStation nostalgia. They don't know who 98% of the characters are that have like little costumes. They know like
Hmm.
Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. Like they know a few of them, Sackboy and stuff like that. But most of them they don't know, and you don't have to have nostalgia to love that game. It's just really, really well done. So that one, and I finished the Shattered Space expansion
Oh,
for
you did.
Starfield. Hmm.
So that was clearly a 5 out of 10 for you, correct?
No,
Complete and utter garbage.
I gave it I score things out of five. I gave it a 4 out of 5 because I think
Okay.
it was really, really good. I
Well,
played on a PC, but yeah.
talk to me about that because that
Yeah.
is actually I ended up liking Starfield a good amount. Again,
Uh-huh.
I was more on the negative side because I was comparing it to Baldur's Gate 3 as far as the conversations, the choices
Yeah.
and stuff. I was like, this game not even close. It's
Yeah.
dated, blah blah blah. Anyways, I ended up liking Starfield a lot. So
Me too.
I want to play Shattered Space. I
Hmm.
actually booted up Starfield again, but I haven't entered into that quest yet.
Ah.
So tell
Yeah.
me about your experience with Shatter Space. What did you like about it? What
Hmm.
didn't you like about it? And do you, in your opinion, again, it's your opinion, it doesn't matter if people agree, do you think reviewers were off? Or do you think they were being dramatic for any particular reason?
Yeah, I think the average review is just under a 6 out of 10 on average, which is pretty
It's like
rough.
5.8, I think,
Yeah.
5.7, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think that's pretty rough. Um, from my personal experience with it. So I also loved Starfield. It was in my top 10 last year. It was in the bottom half of it, but I
Okay.
really enjoyed it a lot. Um, I had never really gotten into Bethesda games, so my expectations were pretty mid, and I thought the game over delivered what I was expecting by a lot. So that's why I enjoyed it so much, I think. Um, so I loved it, and I think this is definitely more of it, but it's more focused. So number one, it's got a more focused story. It's just on one planet. You're going to all these new areas on this one planet. You're not planet hopping. So that makes it feel legit, like literally more grounded. Like you're not really doing much space stuff for the
I like that.
storyline. And they do add a few new gameplay features just in terms of like weapons and armor and stuff like that, but not a ton. If you didn't like the core gameplay mechanics of Starfield or the way the shooting felt, whatever, that stuff's all still there. They add a few weapon types that I think are pretty cool, but nothing crazy. Um, so anyway, I think it plays really well. The new enemies are pretty cool. It's a very kind of high and not intellectual, but it's just one of those like high sci-fi. Think of like high fantasy. This is like a high sci-fi storyline where it's like a high level concept for like what's happening and what you're trying to prevent or save people from, I guess. But yeah, it zooms in on this house of Varun, who all worship this great serpent in the sky, and my in-game wifey was Andreja, so I've heard about this stuff a lot already. So
Hmm.
my one, I have a few negatives. One, on the PC, technically there are certainly a lot of cleanup pieces that are needed. NPCs that are mapped really strangely or that break and they just kind of walk into walls or move into like
Oh,
just
okay.
generally like technical stuff that's not polished. Sometimes your partner or whoever's following you, your
Mm-hmm.
NPC support, sometimes they would just do random things. They would just start running full speed during a conversation into the wall, and it just looks so stupid. I'm like, what do you? This is so dumb. So, it's the some of the Bethesda stuff that just happens.
Yeah.
Certainly still happens. That was my one negative on it, and the second one is I feel like there's a huge missed opportunity with character growth with whoever your companion is that's with you, but especially if you bring Andreja with you, who is from this House of Arun and has her own reasons for not being there anymore. They could have really tied her in much more closely, and rewarded you for bringing her along and letting her chip in on conversations. But it felt like she was very disconnected from it. Like when you land there, she should be like, "Oh man, I'm back home." Like she should say something, but that felt very empty, like a missed opportunity. So those are my two big
Yeah.
criticisms of it was they missed some character opportunities with her and then the other thing. But I thought the overall stories were great. Some of the side missions are a blast. They have really cool stories that you can dig down into and I thought the boss fights are fun. One of the boss fights actually reminded me of the final boss from Cyberpunk, the main storyline, Cyberpunk
Okay.
2077. A very similar boss fight to that. And I actually used a shotgun for that, just like I did in Cyberpunk, and took care of business. But yeah, I really liked it a lot. I thought the way it wrapped up was cool. The final mission was very exciting and very epic, very cinematic.
How
Um,
long did it
yeah.
take you to get through that?
I did maybe like two-thirds of the side stuff that's available to you. I think I spent maybe 7 or 8 hours
Oh, okay.
total in it, something like that. So I think you could spend up to 10 if you explore everything and do all the side missions.
See, I think that's why it's getting crapped on the most is because it's hidden behind the what a premium edition DLC or whatever that's $30. I think that's a big reason is because
Mm.
people are just like $30 for 7, 8 hours of content. And they try to math it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's supposed to be other content in that premium edition. So I think they're mad that they didn't sell it separate for 10, 15, 20. Which by the way, it would have been 20 anyways, even if they
Mm.
sold it separate. So you probably would have heard complaints still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Yeah, it
I
looks like on
had
how
already
long
bought
to
the
beat,
premium
people are
edition.
saying like 7 to 13 hours range, depending on how much side stuff you do. So
Okay.
if I didn't actually didn't look at my time. I didn't look at my time before I started, then afterwards, because it just tallies it onto my main playthrough as well. So it could have been closer to 10 that I spent with it, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't a ton. It took me, maybe 5 or 6 play sessions, sitting down and playing for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours each time
Okay.
at the most. So,
Is
um,
there any
yeah.
like horror vibes or themes to it? Because that's kind of, again, I haven't played it and I've only seen like a few of the trailers, and it almost had like this, like, hey, it's gonna be a little spooky, like Dead Space type spooky. Is it like that, or is there none of that?
Oh, I don't know if it's Dead Space spooky.
Well, not like exactly Dead Space, because that is supposed to be horror,
Yeah.
but
There were probably two or three moments where I thought, oh, that was like a maybe even close to a jump scare kind of a thing, but not a ton. Now
not a lot of
there
tension.
no, it's more like speed, like you better run, like you're getting chased, get
Oh,
out of
okay.
there. Like a little more of that, like more thriller than horror, I would say. But there is these new Vortex, I think they're called Vortex horrors that are these giant kind of bug aliens with these huge claws that just come down on, and they're really hard to kill, at least initially before you upgrade some stuff, and they'll kill you really fast.
Okay.
So those that introduce, and then there are a few. There's even a side mission where you're trying to find this lady's lost brother, and you can tell something bad happened to him. And there are times as you're going where you'll see him like walk by an open doorway real quick, and you go and he's not there. Like so there are horror elements that make, and the music will kick in, you know. So there are certainly some things that make you go, "Oh, that was a little creepy." Um, but but no, I wouldn't say it really leans too far into that. It's got elements of it though, for sure.
Okay. That was what I was counting on.
Yeah.
But
Don't
that
go in
was some of the
expecting to
other.
be like, "Ooh, if I turn the lights off, I'm gonna be spooked." Nah, it won't be anything like a
Oh,
Dead Space experience. Yeah.
okay. So it sounds like you had a good time. You
Yeah.
said that you fell on a. Do you see it as like a 7 or an 8? I don't know if you gave a score.
I think a 7 or 8 is totally a fair score. I ended up landing on a 4 out of 5, so like an 8 out of
That's right.
10.
You did give me a score. Okay.
Yeah, but I think a 7 is a totally fair score. Maybe even a 6 if you really have a lot of technical problems, or maybe if the story doesn't hit for you. I thought there was some cool backstabbing and political maneuvering between. There's houses within House Varun that are all vying for power, so I
Okay.
liked a lot of that stuff. There are missed opportunities for sure, without a doubt, and I do think a lot of people were thinking it's going to feel and play different. So like we've had some games that have had true overhauls when they've had these major DLCs. So think of like Phantom Liberty with Cyberpunk. That
Mm-hmm.
became like a different game almost from start to finish. Final Fantasy 14 did it. No Man's Sky has done it over the years. And this launched and it still feels a lot like Starfield, just a much more polished version of the base game that we all played last
Okay.
year. And so I do think expectations led to a lot of the bad scores personally, but I could be wrong.
No, I've watched a good amount of. I've watched more reviews on it or conversations about it than I've watched on actually what the content is, because I
Yeah.
plan on playing it. Like, it's gonna happen. I already have the premium pass. I already have everything downloaded, and in general, in fact, as you were talking, I was like, you mentioned you're like, oh, Starfield was in my top 10. I'm like, was Starfield in my top 10? And it wasn't.
Yeah.
But if I went back, I don't know. I was gonna say it
Yeah, it's
probably
like
would be
what's gonna get
now,
kicked out though, you know?
but there's nothing that can get kicked out because
Yeah,
I already said last year was ridiculous for me.
yeah,
Okay, so but anyways, I really like Starfield is what I'm trying to say. So I'm gonna
yeah,
definitely play it.
yeah.
Um, but a lot of the conversations I've heard, pricing was a huge issue.
Mm,
And there's some things that I do agree with when it comes to Bethesda games, and that is I still feel like Bethesda, I'm talking about game design, like um the gameplay, the characters, the stories, definitely dialogue. I feel like they're stuck. Like, I feel like
mm,
they're stuck in the past. They're trying to be modern, but they don't know how to do it. And so they do everything decent. I'm not saying they do it bad. They do it good enough for me to give like a Starfield an 8, right? But they don't do it good enough. And I'm talking modern, I'm not talking Skyrim and all that stuff. In the modern days, for them to ever be a 9 or a 10 and have everybody talking about them, because they
yeah,
don't do anything that good anymore. Could
yeah,
they? Maybe, but I think they might have to start cleaning house. I think what's his face came out, one of their developers or writers or whatever came out and was like, we have OG guys who made this game, so I know we did a good job, making this DLC, because we got guys from like Morrowind, and I was thinking
mm,
it's probably part of your problem. They're
yeah,
probably still trying to make Morrowind DLC. But anyways, that's just my personal thing with
yeah,
Bethesda. I know Kyle loves them, Gaston loves them, so I respect Kyle. I don't respect Gaston.
Yeah, that's fair.
Uh,
Sorry, Gaston. I respect you, buddy. It's kind of.
no, not really.
I
But
do think
anyways,
you'll like it. I don't think you'll love it. I think you'll be like, hey, that was more Starfield, and I did enjoy
yeah.
it. I think that's how you'll land. I could be wrong. But so I wouldn't recommend like forcing it in terms of like sitting down to play it. Wait till you're kind of in that mood to revisit Starfield and then
And
go
I
for it.
will because, and we'll get to it in a second. There's just so many games, and there's games that I legitimately am excited about that I'm completely ignoring that I
Yeah.
paid full price for because I don't have time because I'm
Yeah.
playing all of these
I
all
mean,
of these
I have
games.
set Star Wars Outlaws aside because of game after game after game that have come out that have pulled me away from it. So I need to get back to Star Wars Outlaws.
I
That's
was actually
one.
gonna talk to you about Outlaws as well, but
Hmm.
before we do that, what is another game you just finished Astrobot, you just
Astrobot.
finished Shatter Space. What's your main game that you're currently playing?
It would be Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is my current one. So I am about I I don't want to say how many dungeons there are. That's actually kind of story related because things open up after it kind of feels like you're getting towards the end and it opens up more. You're like, oh, there's more to it.
Okay.
It's not that big of a shock. If you look at the map, you can kind of see there's more to come. But anyway, so I'm probably about 60% of the way through, completed a bunch of dungeons and fought a bunch of bosses, upgraded my echo powers a lot. It's very kid friendly, of course, but there are times that I'm like, this is legitimately tough. Like, wow, they actually made this pretty challenging. So, I loved the Link's Awakening remake because I grew up with that game on the Game Boy, and this game really harkens back to that visually, especially.
I just love the
Um,
visuals of those two games
yeah,
so
the
much.
diorama, like kind of toy look is
Mm-hmm.
really, really well done. And this does have, there are times when I just wish, oh, just give me a link and give me a sword. Well, there's kind of a power sort of where you can do that. So they
Mm-hmm.
do give you that fix in a way, but also you're really there to be a summoner and you're summoning items or monsters. And you're almost like a Pokemon master when you can start summoning monsters to go fight for you,
Yeah.
which is really fun to do, especially in and then I started to like combine. You have a grab power where you send out your little buddy to go and like kind of holds them in place with this green orb for like a few seconds. So if you get the right monster summoned and then just grab the enemy and hold them in place, your monsters will attack them while they're just sitting there stuck. Little things like that that I hadn't thought of till later in the game. I was like, oh yeah, I should try that, and it totally works. So yeah, that kind of stuff is really fun. I've even done a thing where I threw out a spike trap that just sits there. He can't move, but then I use that grab power and just carry him around with me and walk him into enemies, and it kills them. Like that's pretty fun too to do.
Yeah.
So in a way, it reminds me of Breath of the Wild in small ways. The creativity required with all the things they give you to play with and to use, things that maybe you wouldn't have thought a box would be important, but it is if you use it in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I like that piece. And then the map and the side missions are very much pulled from Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. You know, just the design of the maps, the way they give you side missions, and all that kind of stuff. The way you cook, you don't cook food, you make smoothies, but it's the same idea. You're collecting ingredients to make a smoothie that will heal you or give you like a stat boost of some kind, like make you swim faster for a minute or protect you from fire for a few minutes, that kind of thing. So you're still doing similar things as you did in those previous two Zelda games. So for a non like mainline Nintendo developed game, because it's made by a different team called
Yeah.
Grezzo. So for a non-mainline Nintendo game, I am incredibly impressed. I think it helped for me too going in knowing this isn't a mainline Nintendo game.
Yeah.
This isn't even on the same level as like Link Between Worlds, that awesome 3DS game, which was really, really good. But as I'm playing it, I'm like, it actually is on that level. Like I wasn't expecting it to be, but it really, really is. So this one's really excellent.
I was gonna play it, but then I was like, you know what? Nintendo's gone woke. I will not
Oh
support a
gosh.
game that has a
Playing
girl.
as a girl.
Yeah, just kidding. I just beat what is it called? Oh, Link's Awakening.
Mm.
Um, I literally just beat it
That
like
game's so fun. I love that
4 or 5 days
remake.
ago.
Yeah.
So I played it at launch. I actually bought the Switch Lite that came, that launched with that game, and bought the game and played. I want to say 9/10 of the game because when I booted it up and I was like, all right, where am I at in my save? I only had to do a little bit in one dungeon
Mm.
and then fight the boss. and then go to another dungeon, fight the boss, and then I was at the boss fight, like the ending.
The
So
final
it only
boss. Yeah.
took me a few hours to finish it. Um, which happens to me sometimes. Sometimes I get really far into the game and I just get tired. I'm like, I'm tired. Like for that game, it was like, I'm tired of these dungeons. They're getting confusing. I don't have a good sense of direction. So that was one of the reasons I actually thought I would never beat it because I was like, I'm gonna go into it. And I'm like, I don't know what I've done. I don't know where to go. But I
Mm,
was able to finish that game off, and then I started um, Echoes of Wisdom, and I was like, it looks the same, but this is completely different. And this is another game where I don't know much about it. I've heard that it has similarities to Awakening, but also that it's a lot like the modern day Zelda games. And I'm like, okay, I'm down with that. So is it open world? So that's my question. I know
mm,
you say it opens up. Is it like literally an open world where you
yeah.
can just go wherever you want?
Yeah, it
Because
is.
that sounds super cool to me.
It is. So it's Link's Awakening or, Link Between Worlds, those kind of games type of a map, right? That's how it
Hmm.
looks. But it's very open. You can go wherever you want from the jump, although some places are blocked off by these purple rifts that you have to clear. So there are some areas we can't get to quite yet. But for the most part,
Hmm.
it's pretty open. And then I mean, right away, one of the earliest things you can summon is a bed. So
Yeah.
it's all in a grid system. So it either goes vertical or it goes sideways a couple of squares. So a bed goes two squares horizontally and one up. So you can just build that as steps to get almost anywhere on top of trees, on top of walls. I used it to get up in the Gerudo Desert. I was just like, let me see how much I can keep climbing up this wall. And I kept going up and it rewards you for it, which reminded me of the modern day Zeldas. It's like I went to a corner of somewhere thinking I was almost breaking the way the game wanted me to play it, but it's not. They had like a hidden silver rupee up there, or they had a piece of heart that I found up there, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I love that. And you can really, there's so many things to copy. Like there's these flying tiles that you have to really look for to find, but they became a super key component to solving so many areas and puzzles because it raises a tile out of the ground, it spins, and you can jump on it and it'll carry you across the screen till it breaks. So
Nice.
things like that are really fun. I like that it rewards you for doing stupid stuff and building a stack of beds to jump up on top of trees and then run around that way. So um, it's not a huge map. It's not overwhelming. Even when as you start to unlock areas, you're like, okay, this is a very reasonably sized for this type of game. I don't want a map that's the size of an Elden Ring. That'd be too much.
No.
I would lose interest. So I think it's a reasonably sized map for the type of game that it is. I don't really want to spend more than maybe 25, 30 hours at the most in this game. And I think I'm on target to maybe spend 20-ish, 22 when
Okay.
it's all said and done. So that to
That's
me,
what
that's
it looks
perfect
like. It
length.
it it's I think that I did a YouTube video that's 100%, not 100% of the game, but like a full walkthrough.
Okay.
Um, and they always cut stuff. So if they die or they get lost, they cut that out. And it came in at 15 hours. I was like, damn, this is a beefy game because
Yeah.
that means he probably played it 18 to 22 hours, somewhere in between there,
Yeah.
depending on how long it took him to figure stuff out. But like,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
a beefy game.
Yep.
Um, but like I said, it's definitely my type of game. I know I'm gonna play it, probably gonna beat it. Because I really did like Link's Awakening. They're very charming, they're easy to look at,
Yep.
and like you said, you never are doing this, and this one's probably even more different than Link's Awakening. You're never doing the same thing over and over. There's always
Mm.
something that Nintendo throws at you that's like, you haven't seen this before, or this is just completely different in this game. So you
Yep.
always feel like you're getting something fresh. And so
Yep.
I do like that about the direction they went here. They're like, well, we could have make another Link's Awakening type of game with Zelda and give him a sword and you go run through dungeons, and that would have been cool. People would have loved it. But I do like that they were like, you know what? Zelda's in the name. Let's make a game for her, and then
Yeah.
also let's make her completely different from
Right.
Link.
She doesn't have to be like girl power can do everything a boy can do. Now she can do different things and is in
Yeah.
some ways a lot stronger because now she controls all these monsters that Link could never control. So like that's cool. I think that's a cool side approach to it where it doesn't feel like because actually Link especially at the beginning. But you see him at times in the game because he's part of the story. He's not someone that you control, but you do see him at times. And like, there's no point where I thought, man, they really made him stupid or not cool. Like, he's still awesome. It's just
Mm-hmm.
your Zelda trying to help him now. So think of
Yeah.
like a regular Zelda game. You're Link, and from time to time, as the story unfolds, you might see Zelda or interact with her or have to help her or whatever. And it's kind of similar in its own way, but it never makes him seem like a damsel in distress. He is still, you know, the warrior of lore or whatever they say with the green hood and the sword or whatever.
Yeah.
So, so
Well,
yeah,
cool. I look forward to. I'm gonna be honest. I played a little bit before we jumped on because I was like, oh, I want to talk about it.
yeah,
And I was like really liking it, but then I'm like, dude, Metaphor comes out tomorrow,
yeah, it does.
and I'll talk about that in a second. And then I'm loving all these other games I'm playing as well. I don't think realistically this is gonna be like my top game.
Yeah,
Um, but you're 60% in, you're loving it. Is
yeah.
there anything else though that you're playing, or is that the main thing and that's the only thing you're
There's
playing
so
right now?
many that I've kind of like ducked in and
Dabbled
out
in?
of here and there, but those are my recent ones, just for the sake of time too. Like those are my recent ones. I just installed because I know you're gonna talk about it here in a second. I just installed the demo for Metaphor ReFantasio, and I know you've played it, so I want to hear what you think about it. Also, I installed the demo, and I'm hoping to play it this weekend or maybe today for Sky Ocean's Wings for Hire, which looks kind of like that. What's the airship one? The RPG that everyone loves. And
Oh, Grandia, not Grandia. Dang it.
is it
I know what you're
Rogue?
talking about.
No, not Rogue
No,
Galaxy.
I know
What
what
is
you're
it?
talking about.
This looks kind of like that. Um, it's got those vibes, kind of like
Skies of
anime.
Arcadia.
Skies of Arcadia. It's got those. No idea if it plays like it. I'm gonna try the demo to see, but
It's
it
on
does look really
Steam.
fun. Yeah, it's called Sky Oceans Wings for Hire,
I
and
bet you I saw that one before because I think there was one that I shared with Dan and I was like, this looks like Skies of Arcadia. So I wonder
yeah.
if that's we're talking about the same
Yeah,
game.
it's a very like Saturday morning cartoon anime visual style. They say it's a homage to JRPG classics, which I assume would be Skies of Arcadia is when they're referring to. So
Okay, cool.
yeah,
Um, yes, I will then jump in and give you a little bit of metaphor. Um, well, before I do that, I just finished Persona 3 Reloaded. So this year I
yeah,
beat Persona 5 Royal, and then I just finished Persona 3 Reloaded. So I would say I'm now a Persona fanboy
mm,
because I really enjoyed those two experiences. Do
mm-hmm.
they sometimes feel like they're dragging on for somebody like me? Yes,
Hmm.
because they do talk a lot, and I'm like,
Yeah,
dude, shut up. And you are doing a lot of similar stuff, but I love, first of all, I love the combat, and
yeah.
visually they're very stimulating. Like, I'm
Great
not talking
music
like
too.
not sexy, but like just like the lights and like the animations, everything
Yeah,
they do is
you
so
gotta be
super
careful what you say
cool.
there because that's all usually in high schools, so you don't want to be going to jail.
I
Yeah.
mean, I would go to jail.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
but anyway, so I really enjoy those games now, and so it kind of after finishing, I was already excited after finishing Royal, but once I finished Reloaded, which was my goal, it kind of hyped up Metaphor even more.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love like the whole like, hey, we're a group of teenagers doing, it kind of gets a little like, okay, we've done this enough. This is more my style because this is your fantasy
Yeah.
world,
Kingdoms
which,
and that kind of stuff.
yes, which
Hmm.
is what I love. That's my thing. And now you're
Yeah.
taking a lot of the systems, not all of them, but a lot of systems in the Persona games, and you're putting it in that fantasy world and fantasy element with politics and backstabbing and all
Mm.
of this stuff. And just so you know, in case you don't know already, so that demo is not like, a little hour, you fight a boss and you get to take it's the prologue. It took me over 5 hours to get through
I've
it.
heard it's beefy. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it
5 hours.
really
Dang.
sets you up because there was a couple times where I was like, oh, okay, I just beat this boss. This is probably going to end now. And it's like, okay, we're going to the next area. I'm like, all right, this prologue just keeps going. Um,
Yeah.
but it does a really good, let me say this because I don't want to just overly praise it. When I first started playing it, it was a little jarring because there's a lot going on. I also have some issues visually with it. Not that it's not a good looking game, it's the same art style as Persona, so it looks fine. There's a lot of like, and you'll see it when you play it. There's a lot of stuff on the screen. Like they have unnecessary, like it's supposed to be like visually appealing, but for me it's just distracting. But it's almost like it looks like there's little shards of glass everywhere that
Mm.
moves the entire time. And again, it's supposed to be like this visually stimulating thing, I think, but it really isn't. It's just distracting. And I actually saw sorry, this light's like super bright. But I actually saw a post on Steam about like, is anybody else like annoyed by this? And a bunch of people are like, yes. And I was like, I hope they do something about it. Is it a deal breaker? No, but it is. When I first started, I was like, there's just so much going on the screen. It's
Mm.
hard to stay focused. And
Okay.
then they also changed the gameplay a little bit. So this one's kind of a hybrid and that and I like this. At first I was a little like what the hell's going on? This is kind of stupid. But as I played it more and figured out what they were doing, I was like, "Ooh, I really like this." It kind of is like what Kyle was talking about when he was describing Trails of whatever the game is. I own it, but I forgot the name. But Trails of the recent game that came out, where
The
he was like,
action
"Hey,
RPG from earlier this year, that one?
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
where
okay.
he's like, it's a hybrid. It's action combined with
Hmm.
turn-based. That's exactly what Metaphor is doing. So you can run up to an enemy, and here's what's cool about it. So every time you fight an enemy the first time, they're more than likely either at your level or higher. So you can't just action RPG beat them up. You
Mm.
can start hitting them, and if you get a full combo in, it will then trigger this button that says hit triangle or Y if you're on the Xbox controller. And if you do that, um, it will then go into turn based, but it gives you an advantage. So, like, literally, you'll go into the next scene, will be you entering in the turn based arena, and then your team will start beating the hell out of the enemy. And it's just automatic because you've gotten the advantage in the fight. And sometimes you'll stagger the enemies because you beat them up pretty bad. And then you go into a turn-based system and you fight. If they're lower level, so let's say my party's level 5, and I run into low level 2 or 3 enemies, you can just beat them up in the action scenario, and you don't even have to go in the turn-based. They
Oh,
just
that's
die.
cool. I like
Yeah, so
that.
you don't have to waste your time, and you're still getting experience for knocking out
And that's
these
just you got to plan ahead,
loser.
right? Final Fantasy
Hmm.
12 style. You just kind of strategize
Yep.
ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool doing that, but the structure of everything so far as I feel it out, I'm like, okay, this is very Persona.
Mm.
There's all these uh, abilities that you can level up that are, like the characteristics of your character, which then makes them more powerful in combat, or gives them the ability to probably make different dialogue choices. I'll have to look into that and see if that's a part of this. But and again, this is just a small little chunk because the game's supposed to be 80 to 100 hours. It does have a nice setup for a very, very interesting story. I will say
Mm.
Persona 5 had that as well. 3 had it, but 5 definitely had it. Like the way they started, the whole mystery, you get caught and you're arrested and you're
Yeah,
talking to
I
this
remember that in
girl.
5.
Yeah, and you have no idea like how this is going to play out, and he's revealing the story as you go. I love that. And by the way, it plays out really nicely and it's well worth going through the 100 hours. This is kind of got that same vibe where it's no, you're not arrested and sitting in a jail cell, but it's telling you an interesting story. You see a lot of corruption, you see a lot of backstabbing, um, and now you're fighting against that. And then things happen in that first 5 or 6 hours that I was like, I cannot wait until. By the way, for those who don't know, we're recording on Thursday the 10th. The game comes out tomorrow. I
So
cannot
this is
wait
all
till
based
tomorrow.
just on the prologue. Like you,
Yeah, this is just a prologue.
that's crazy because the impressions you're already sharing sounds like you've played the game for dozens of hours, but this prologue
Yeah,
is there's a lot in it.
took
Like
me 5.5 hours.
That's awesome.
And I didn't do all the side
Good for
stuff.
them for giving away so much of it just to pull people in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they don't really have to do that. I mean, you're talking about a company that their games sell very, very
I
well.
know. Yeah.
They could have done no demo at all and they would have been fine.
Yeah. Official new IP
Um,
from Atlas. People are going to buy it, you know?
yes.
Hmm.
And I think this one has a lot of interest in it. But I know you're not like I know you played Persona 5 for a while. I
I
remember
did.
because you and I were kind of in the same boat where we got to about the 15, 20 hour mark and then we would drop
Yes.
off.
Yeah.
Um, this one, I don't know. Give it a shot. See if you like it. I mean, maybe you're not gonna buy it right away. Um, and I wish I bought it digitally, but I have like a hard copy of it coming on PS5. I have it on PC too, but the only reason why I did it is because I had a bunch of rewards, so I was just like, I'm just gonna
Mm.
buy it and own a hard copy of it because I'm
Yeah.
kind of a fanboy now. But anyways, it would have been cool if I could have bought like a digital code
Hmm.
with my coupons or rewards because then you could have played it just on PS5.
Yeah.
But
I will
but
tell you
it's
the demo is smart because there's people like you and
you.
Kyle and many others who are going to buy it. That
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You love Persona too much, you're going to buy it. Then there's folks like me who like I've always respected that series and from I played a good amount of 4 Golden and 5 and I thought these are cool games. There's not my thing. The high school setting, I just lose interest. It's
Yeah.
hard for me to like really care about this. I'm not saying they do a bad job. It's just not for me. But then this setting looks interesting and then they're like, "Here, why don't you play it for 4 or 5 hours? Just play it." So this is smart because this is the kind of thing that annoyingly for my wallet could reel me in and make me purchase the full thing. Based on what Kyle told me about the demo so far and what you're saying about it, I'm literally just thinking, crap, I'm gonna have to spend money on this thing, aren't I?
I would at least, yeah, give the demo a shot, and then
Yeah, I will.
obviously you have a nice PC. Buy it on PC, and you can get it discounted. I bought it on PC at a lower price, and then because of my rewards, even the my PS5 copy ended up not being as much either. But
Nice.
um, I th- it I will say this as a warning for those who don't watch Digital Foundry like I do and haven't played the demo yet. There on my 4090 it runs fine, but there are going to be some issues for other PC gamers because I feel like it's a pretty heavy game that's not optimized extremely well as of yet,
That's fair.
and you're seeing on Steam PC Gamer, I'm mad, which is a shock. And even on PS5. So I did watch Digital Foundry, and they were like, "We got some issues with this stuff. It's a heavy
Hmm.
game, and it knocks around the performance." But keep in mind, even though you would consider me like a PC snob, I'm really not because like when I watch Digital Foundry's videos, and they're like, "The game does not hit 60 frames per second." And I have a problem with that. And then they start showing their footage and it drops to like 56, 55. I'm like, guys, shut up. Really, dude? Because I have a rule like anything above 40 frames per second feels good to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I'm playing a shooter. Yes, I would prefer 60 or even 100, 120. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you can get me to 40 with all the graphics decked out, you're not going to hear me complain about the performance because
Mm,
it usually feels good. Also, this is a JRPG. This is not a first person shooter.
right.
You don't need it to run at 120 frames per second. You just
Right.
need it to look good and be decent. Like, don't want it stuttering and stuff like that. I didn't have any stutter issues, but again, I'm not a good person to go to because, and it's not a flex, I honestly don't experience a lot of the problems that other PC gamers complain about because mine is literally until they release the 50 series the highest end PC you can have right now with CPU and GPU combined. So when I'm playing it, the only time I can tell if a game's not optimized well is if I'm like, why is this game only running at 60 frames per second?
Uh,
And if ray tracing's on, that makes sense. But like if
yeah.
it's no ray tracing and it's only running at 60, then that generally gives me an idea it's not
Hmm.
optimized well. But
Yep.
anyways, the point I was trying to make is that be wary that it's a pretty heavy game, even though if you go look at it, you're like, why is this heavy? It's like cartoon. But
Yeah.
there's a
There's a
lot
lot
going on
happening.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and I think they went a little too overboard, but it's a really good experience. I think you should give it a shot. Download it and just go into it and go. I would have a rule just like I'm gonna give it 2 hours. If I don't like the combat or I don't find the characters intriguing, I do a hard stop, delete it, and just tell everybody
Don't
I
think
don't
about it.
care.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if you get to that 2 hour point and you're like, nope, I like the combat, I'm intrigued by
Mm,
the story, and I like the characters, I think you'll by the time you get to your 5.5, 6 hours, you'll be like, I think I'm gonna have to buy this game. Even if it's
yeah.
not day one, you'll probably want to buy it at some point.
I'm
Um,
absolutely gonna play the demo. It's a big demo
yeah,
too. It's like 53 gig install, so it took a minute, but yeah.
yeah, definitely worth
Hmm.
it. Um, any other games though that you're playing or that you're looking forward to, anything like that?
I will
Uh,
say I just downloaded Once Human to try it. I feel like with all the updates it's gotten, they just rolled out apparently this new some kind of like winter area or about to roll out this winter area update.
what is that game again?
So, um, it's described as a
I've
open
heard of it,
world.
but
It's like an open world action adventure survival game. Uh,
oh, I
it's
did watch a
online, like
video on that.
it's multiplayer.
Okay.
Um,
What's the
I,
combat like though?
I don't know. I haven't played it yet, but I mean, some
I
of the
think it's
videos
a
shows
third
people.
person like
It looks
survivor
like third
game.
person. You got over the shoulder shooting, lots of machine guns. Sometimes reminds me of Days Gone or Division a
Is
little
it free
bit.
to play?
Yeah, it's free on
I might
Steam.
have to download it and
Yeah.
give it a shot.
So I'm gonna
That
try
was the
Once
one I
Human.
watched a video, yeah.
And then I got the MMO itch with Throne and Liberty being released because NCSoft has made some of my favorites with City of Heroes and Guild Wars 2. I liked those games a lot, so downloaded it, tried it for like an hour or maybe two, and I do think it's pretty good. It's just kind of old school MMO. Like here's your hot bar and you hit the buttons as like it's very much a standard MMO experience, but it's very pretty. It's got a great style to it. But it's certainly not for everyone. Like it's an MMO game. Some people just don't like those, and that's totally fair. But it is also free to play. Another free to play thrown in. I think it's Amazon Games published it. So
Oh, okay.
um,
Nice.
so yeah, those are two that I've grabbed just because they're free. I'm trying to save money, man, because there's so many. Like you said, there's so many. Even with Assassin's Creed Shadows getting delayed, there's still so many games coming out the rest of this year that I'm gonna spend money on. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
got a refund for that game because of all the drama. Like Green
yeah.
Man Game, I just messaged Green Man Gaming and I was like, I paid $110 for this, and Ubisoft comes out and tells me
There's no
we
more.
screwed up,
Yeah,
blah blah
yeah,
blah, and they immediately refunded me, which was pretty cool.
yeah. Because there
But
isn't gonna be the deluxe editions and stuff anymore.
I don't
Season
know.
passes.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna work, but I went on my Ubisoft account because the way Green Man Gaming does it with Ubisoft, if you buy through them, it automatically activates to your account if you're linked. So
Okay,
if you go in my Ubisoft account, the
it
game
says you own
shows
it.
there and
Yeah,
it still says I own it. Now, I imagine they're gonna update it and
probably.
eventually because they know my version doesn't exist, it'll probably delete it. But
Ubisoft, if
like
you're listening to this episode of this podcast, don't do that to
there's
Derek. Don't
part
do
of me that's like, come on, man, just give me a free copy, okay? I spent a lot of money. Because I did get the refund, but the game's still showing as you own this. So I'm like, oh, cool.
it.
All right,
It's
just
awesome.
real quick, because I know you got to get off. I'm just
I
gonna end the
do.
show on talking about one game in particular. I think some listeners would be interested in, and that's
Mm.
Silent Hill 2
Yeah.
remake. So I only played Silent Hill for a little bit. I found that game to be extremely creepy and scary, but I loved the premise of it, like the plot, the way they
Mhm.
set it up. But I just remember my friend and I on our original PS1, my PS1, but we played it. I don't know how far we got into it, but I just remember being like, this is not a game for me. It's way too scary, right? So now I buy Silent Hill 2, never played the original because I dropped off after the first one, and I bought this one because it looked like, hey, you love Resident Evil. I think you would probably like this. Here's all I want to say about it. I'll keep it short. It is very much a lot like Resident Evil,
Mm.
but I was messaging a couple guys and I was like, this Resident Evil has nothing on Silent Hill when it comes to atmosphere, tension, and just the entire experience feels like uncomfortable as you're playing. Oh, environments is what I was gonna say.
Mm.
You feel uncomfortable the entire time, and I don't get scared. Like when I play these horror games,
Because I'm a
like
man.
yeah, I'm a man. Like I was playing Dead Space remake, it never scared me. It was
Mm.
semi uncomfortable in the beginning, but I was like, I got it. I'll just run through and kill everything. This game, even though I have a lot of bullets. I still feel completely uncomfortable because the sound design is so good. The levels are creepy as heck. And I'm not talking about like,
Yeah.
oh, blood splatter. We all seen that. I'm not talking about that. The enemies are ridiculous. First of all, I have a thing against mannequins. And most of the enemies look like mannequins, like weird, odd-shaped mannequins. And then some, the beginning enemies that you run into are like literally bags of flesh, like just moving around on the floor, or they can get up and start walking towards you. It's all super creepy. And like I said, I love the Resident Evil games. I always rate them high. They're
Yeah.
my favorite horror genre. But just the first 3.5, 4 hours that I've played of Silent Hill 2, which tells you a lot about that because I just started playing it, that I really like this. Um, I can't believe how well they've nailed the entire tension experience. Like I'm just like
Yeah.
on edge the whole time.
Good
Like
job, Bloober
I
team,
hear,
you know?
yeah, I'm like I hear something, but you know how you hear something and then it pops out. This
Hmm.
game you'll like constantly hear stuff and it's like never showed up
Yeah. Yeah,
or I
the
never ran into it.
last thing I played of theirs was the Medium, which I thought was mediocre start to finish. The concept was pretty good, but the game wasn't all that fun. Remember the Medium?
Oh, I didn't like that one. I
So
played a lot of it and I didn't like
that's
it.
I finished that game and I remember being like, I liked the concepts, but man, it just didn't work overall as a game
Yeah,
for me. But good for Bloober Team for sticking with it and getting the
that's
keys from Konami to take on this remake. You know, good for them to do for doing
really,
that. And hey, man,
really good.
Steam's user reviews, 8,000 reviews, 95% positive. It's overwhelmingly positive
Oh,
right
they
now.
nailed it. They freaking nailed it. They followed. I didn't play the original, but everybody who's played the original says they don't veer off anything. They keep it the same, but
Hmm.
they just make everything better. And to me, that's how you should be making remakes. Unless like we've talked about with like Final Fantasy and stuff like that, where it's like if you feel like something's dated and you just want
Mm,
a unique experience, cool. But you
yeah.
just advertise it that way. Like it's not like Final Fantasy came out and you were like, I thought it was gonna be
Yeah.
turn-based.
We
Like
knew it would be different.
you
Yeah.
knew. This
Hmm.
they didn't change anything significantly. They didn't do anything like that. They're just like we're gonna remake this game because it was so ugly and it was so difficult to play because of how terrible
Hey,
games were back
good
then.
time of year
And
for it, man. This is good. This is a spooky time of year right
yeah,
now. This is it.
so it's a great experience so far. Really, really
Mm.
enjoying it, and it's what I would consider a pleasant surprise. That being said, Metaphor comes out tomorrow. Do not care
Yeah.
anymore. Goodbye,
Yeah.
Silent Hill.
Yeah, I'm playing that demo, man. I can't wait for the Metaphor demo. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
give
play
it a
it.
shot and then
Yep,
message me and let me know what you think. I'd
I
love to
will.
hear your thoughts on it. Or, well, we're actually going to do another podcast soon. How about you just tell me then? I think
I
that would be
will.
pretty cool.
We'll be talking Metaphor on the next current gen podcast episode as well. That is true. Yep.
Yeah, I will be playing the heck out of it so I can add some extra content beyond what I talked about tonight. Plus,
Nice.
it'll be cool having Kyle there because he's a huge fan as well.
And he's
So.
playing Silent Hill 2 and loving it also.
Yeah,
So,
awesome. So you get to
mhm.
hear him and I blush over all these games. You're like, okay.
The only problem I have with any of that is that you guys are making me want to buy games I normally wouldn't buy. I'd normally just happily skip over it and not think about it. But now you guys got me thinking about Metaphor and Silent Hill 2. I'm like, I was happy to not pay for these games. I was happy to not do it.
Well, it's funny that you say that because like Rob and I are very loose with our money, and then Jesse is not. He's
Yeah.
very frugal. And we have our little chat where we talk almost every day. And Rob and I, all we do is talk about like the new monitor or TV we're buying, the new game we're getting, all
Poor
this stuff.
Jesse.
And Jesse's just sitting there like, okay, I hate all this shit. And so he finally bought this brand new LG OLED TV, a new sound system
Nice.
AV. Like he spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then he changed our group name to like FOMO Bros. Because he's like, I'm so sick and tired of seeing you guys talk about all this crap nonstop. Every
Yeah,
day it's
the only
monitors.
games that I know I can hype up and you'll never buy are going to be like some of the smaller indie or survival games.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I know you're pretty much up for buying almost any genre, like racing, fighting, sports, like whatever. You'll go for it, man. Yeah.
Well, even and I'll end on this. Even the other night, I have a young adults group that I hang out with, and we had a game night, and I sat down and started playing Risk with them, and I've
Yeah,
never
Risk is
played Risk
great.
before. And I was like, this is kind of like those Command and Conquer games and all those tactical games. Maybe I'll start buying those because I never buy them. And I'm like, oh, great. Just another genre for me to be like, yeah, maybe I'll just get into those territorial games where you just come in and dominate. Because I had so much fun. Like, I just joined the game in the middle of the game because these two girls quit and I took over their armies, and their armies were like super small. And I ended up just growing and growing. I was like, this is really fun. I
It's very
like this.
satisfying to defeat people little by little and watch their spirits get slowly crushed.
Oh, yeah. They were all getting pissed. They're like,
Side
what
note,
the heck?
those I think those remastered games are all on Game Pass because they have EA Play through Game Pass
Oh,
on
yeah.
PC. So if you
Yeah.
ever did want to just dabble and then like, never
I
mind, I
will.
don't want to pay for like you can for free.
I will. I'll
So
just check those out. But yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Anyways, that's our show. I'm glad Tim was on here. I always love having him on here. You're welcome on here anytime you want. Um, I highly recommend, we both highly recommend Zelda Echoes of
Hmm.
Wisdom. I highly recommend Metaphor and definitely Silent Hill 2 if you like horror games. But that's our show. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you, who knows, whenever I decide to record episode 12. Who cares? Bye.